Hi, and welcome back to Yeti at Large. Today's episode of our wood cutting process, we're going to split and stack our firewood. When we got the lovely pile of sticks as a bank-owned home a few years ago, we had plenty of locations to grow our food, just not a lot to store our wood. So we had to get busy about building a woodshed. These row of footers were already on the property there in the back of the picture. Couldn't figure out what they were for, so instead of fighting it, we boxed it and poured 3 more, and that's where we put our woodshed. I was pretty offended at the price of lumber, especially for the quality available at the time, and I had a side hustle where a resident wanted some dead standing aspen trees removed as he was afraid of the oyster shale scale that was infecting some of the aspen trees. So I got paid to remove the trees, and I also got some great 14-foot timbers to build this shed. Now, we employed a little bit of an unorthodox framing method because we were short on the amount of lumber we had, and we knew that the structure would have to support a pretty heavy snow load a couple times during the year. So I built it with a pretty steep roof. I added 1 more footer in the center of the floor for structure, and we used a box of old 9 and 12-inch lag bolts that we had left over from a previous project. Came together pretty well, even though these timbers are anything but straight, plumb, and true. You can see we strapped it to the pine tree to give us a little structural rigidity while we got the bulk of the frame up. I love the way that it came together on the floor. We guesstimated on the size of the logs, we butted them in, we notched in a few places, and using those lag bolts and an impact driver, we got a pretty tough structure. You can see how when it started to really come together, we had to solve the issue of the floor. I got really lucky at the local Home Depot. They had some pressure treated 3/4-inch plywood that would probably be $300 worth of wood today, but because it was so warped, they gave me 3 pieces for $25. So I selected the logs that were just as warped as the plywood, and we made our floor work for us. Sheds water pretty good. So here's the finished product, and obviously it's got last year's wood in it. There's some steel corrugated tin roofing that I had from another side project. But we need to fill this thing this year, so let's get busy about splitting the wood we have. We're at the day that I generally don't look forward to in the wood cutting process, and that's splitting, stacking, and rotating your firewood. Now this stack in here is a terrible example, but it's real. We're going to rotate all of this, reline the walls, bring the old wood back here to the front, keep the snow out. We're going to fire up the log splitter. We'll show you our splitting cradle, and we'll get to work and see if we can't get what can be a pretty tough chore done. And just like we did with the saws, let's dig this log splitter out from its overwinter, see what kind of shape it's in. Mule tape, best stuff ever. Crappy blue tarp. Don't trust your stuff to this junk, shame on me. I gotta come up with a better plan. A little bit of brake cleaner. A little bit of penetrating oil. Don't split any further away from where you're going to stack than you absolutely have to. Save yourself a trip or two. All right, just like the saws, no games. I winterized this last year, and it's been sitting ever since. This is an ordinary 4-stroke engine. I had a fresh spark plug in it last year. I just checked the oil, it's good. I have not pulled on this in a couple of years. Heck, I can't even remember if this is full choke or that's full choke. I'm gonna guess it's that. I got it in the on position. Let's see what we get. Operation of the splitter is very straightforward. It moves slow, so it's not a high velocity machine. These smaller ones are nice to split because it'll help them cure and stack better. This wood isn't fully dry, so you see it gets a little ratty, and you want to be smart about splitting around knots and finding the shapes and sizes that best suit your fireplace. The lever has forward and back, and it will automatically pop off when it reaches the end of each throw. You can see here, for example, I've got a couple of knots that I'm trying to decide where I want to be on that. Sometimes I'll go in thirds, not right down the middle. Other times I'll just try to nibble a corner off to get a flat side and then go that route. Here's where I wished I had 2 wheelbarrows. A nice feature of this wood splitter is the ability to lift the carriage vertical. This can be very helpful when you're dealing with large diameter pieces that might be unsafe to try to lift onto a horizontal caddy. I double check to make sure I've got the wheels chalked so it doesn't move after I've repositioned it. Simply just releasing a pin and rotating it on the axis, and it sits flat on the ground. Again, we got this log splitter used. It needed just a little bit of work. Typically these can run $1,800, and I think at this point I have altogether $400 into it. This is a small chunk of oak from a job last year that I did where the tree suffered severe storm damage and had to be removed. Since my teenagers are grown and gone, I'm doing this by myself this year. So to be smart, I'm going to put it flat on the ground. I'm going to position it to work like a pizza, and then to just take slices as I rotate it around on the base. You'll see that I have an extra piece of wood here that helps level it up. And then you just break it into smaller chunks. Take your time, be smart, and you'll get it into manageable sizes. This tree has been down for an entire year and a few months, and it's still got a lot of moisture on the inside. It'll be nice to finally split this into usable sizes and get it stacked in the wood box and out of the weather though. All right, major complaint. When I got this saw, I cried about these cheap plastic oil and gas caps. They never quite tightened all the way, and so you had to snug them, and then the second I do, bam, that can ruin your whole day. I don't believe I have any spares, and God knows I've been careful with that not to over tighten it. But I have an idea. This is my granddad's saw, a Stihl 024 AV. When it died, I hung it up here as a rite of passage, and it's still got the caps on this. Let's see if those fit. And that's a no-go, because that's an inside thread and the new one is an outside thread. Thank you, Stihl. Notice how old this saw is? If it's focusing on that, it says proudly made in West Germany. You're not perfect, Stihl. I've completely dug through my bucket of spare parts and stuff. No dice. Maybe we can borrow them off the big saw for the day. No, because it's a whole different design. Stihl, did you not watch Apollo 13? You want to know why we all love Jeff Foxworthy's redneck jokes and observations? Because sometimes it just works. Now, I'm not asking a lot from this saw, and I ain't traveling with it. Now this is a very high viscous cutting oil, so it's not going to leak like fuel would. Let's see if that'll get us through what we need to do today. We built this sawhorse specifically to not have to measure wood and be able to cut it to length. I wanted it taller to match my height, and I'm left-handed, so everything was kind of reversed to fit me well. You'll see where the chain can scrape that vertical 2x4, but I also put a stop down at the bottom that if that gets chewed up, I can replace it. If you look close at the saw, you'll notice the oil filler cap seems to be missing. Little beef I have with Still with the quality of their products, but we'll show you that in just a second. This aspen's left over from the building of the woodshed. We didn't collect any this year because of the oyster shale disease, and this is a piece of pinon pine. This is one of those stumps that I like to clean up out of the woods that other people leave behind. I couldn't get over at the quality of this wood, how hard it is. This little piece right here, it's kind of a knot, but if I put that in the fireplace, that's going to burn all night. So I'm going to go through and finish up trimming the rest of the loose ends that I found in the wood box and laying around the property to size, and show you what my complaint with the chainsaw is. We went ahead and fired up the burn barrel tonight with everything we cleaned out of the woodshed. We'll get back to work at it bright and early tomorrow morning. Welcome to day 2 of Split and Stack. We've organized our workspace, adjusted a little bit. We're down to this from our cut. We've got some more to split, and we've done a pretty good job of stacking our new wood, rotating our old wood. We are well into day 2, and I was going to save you another grueling high-speed montage, but you can see we've really cleaned up our work area, put a lot of stuff away that we don't need anymore. We're down to the splitter. I'll show you the oak that we have left to split. I've raked up all the duff, and the burn barrel's trying to catch again, but it may go. I couldn't bring myself to turn this into firewood. When I dropped it on the ground, it stood up like that. This one may have a life as a project. But you can see we got our wall to keep the snow out of the woodshed. Each one of these bunks was designed to be approximately half a cord of wood, about 61 cubic feet if you really get down to brass tacks. So here is last year's wood that we're going to burn first. There's about, if you go wall to wall, there's going to be about a cord there. This back wall has a cord that'll go if I need more. And this is what we've cut this year so far, getting stacked to back the big wall. And I got my little solar light to come on to help keep the raccoons out of here. When this tree died, I left the stump there to work like a stop for wood, because this is where I pile wood. And I gotta tell you, these are big oak rounds. They're not dry yet. There's a lot of wood in there, and I'm trying to be real careful about how I handle them. I can't bring myself to split this one. This may be our new splitting stump. And that oak is from a project last year with a tree that went down with storm damage that we removed. And I might take this stump that I have been using and put that pinion in the wood box. Well, that's the end of day 2. We've got plenty of wood split and stacked, and we're ready for this winter. We obviously got a little more to add, but I think you get the idea at this point. Our next episode will happen the night of the first good freeze. We'll clean the chimney, and we'll show you how we burn wood here at Yeti at Large. But in the meantime, we got good coals on the fire pit. We may cook some dinner and call it a day. Thank you for joining us and helping out. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below.